In this video, I'm going to share with you the top 5 most common questions that are asked in Domino's Pizzas interviews, and I'm going to share with you some fantastic answers that are going to help you land that job. So let's start with a question that always comes up in Domino's interviews, which is simply, what times can you work? And if you don't answer this question well, you are very unlikely to get the job. So you must make sure that your answer is honest, because if you promise to work certain times, then you get your contract through, and then you say you can't work those times, they will just cancel the contract. So don't lie in this question. But once you've got past that, you're going to make sure that you're showing that you're super flexible and that you are committed to Domino's. A lot of people screw this question up by immediately listing all the times they can't do, and that just puts your interviewer right off hiring you. So show your flexibility, show your commitment. Once you've done that, here's some great tips. So make sure you mention the following times. So if you can work late at night, you can work at weekends, you can be there at short notice, and you're happy to work during sporting events. If you simply mention those 4 things, that gets the interviewer's attention. That makes them think this is someone that is going to solve the problems for the store. They're going to be at the difficult times to staff, and they're going to be here at our peak times. So when you start listing these things, they are going to get very interested. The secret to success on this question is to focus on what you can do for Domino's and don't even mention what you can't do. The chances are that once you've listed the times that you can do and you've used those from the list, they're going to move on to the next question. And if you can never do a Thursday night for some reason, and they haven't specifically asked about Thursday, they're never going to know that. They're going to have given you the job before they ever find that out. So just do not volunteer any information on this question unless you're pressed, and then you'll be successful on this. So let's move on to the next question. What do you know about Domino's Pizza? And this question may not be asked exactly like that, but the study that you do for this question will definitely be used in the interview, and you can volunteer some of this information to show off your knowledge. So when you're answering this question, you're kind of using the diagram on the left. So a bad answer is things that everyone knows. And as you go out in that diagram to what only some people know, and then some things that only very few people know, that makes your answer stand out more and more. So you're going to cover the obvious things. That Domino's Pizza is a pizza focused restaurant. It's running on Italian American. It's got delivery as its focus. Then you can move on. I've included some facts about their history that make you stand out a little bit more. You've got to realize that Domino's is mainly franchised with some corporate owned stores, but not many. Almost all are franchised. You can talk about Domino's Pizza's chant, where they chant things like sell more pizza, have more fun. That's a big part of their culture. They're international. They're spread out a huge number of countries. A great trivia fact to know is that the 3 dots on the logo represent the 3 original stores. You can talk about also their Paving for Pizza initiative, where they've actually paid to repair potholes, which is one of their corporate social responsibility things. So if you get a lot of these facts in, and you can link them to other questions, why are you interested in working for Domino's? And you can talk about these sort of things. So study the history, study some knowledge, and know exactly what they do. And obviously know that they're franchised, because that's a really important thing to remember. And it may be that the store owner is the person that is interviewing you. So that is worth being aware of. So let's move on to my top tip for this question, which is to read Domino's Pizza's Form 10K. Just type in Domino's Pizza Form 10K and you will get more information than you can possibly imagine on the company. And if you just mention that you've read that, that will impress the person interviewing you. Let's go on to the next question. How would you deal with an angry or upset customer? And in fast food, this is something that is going to happen, and that's why they ask about it. So the key word that you're going to start by using is the word de-escalation. If you just say that word de-escalation, the person on the other side of the interview knows that you know what you're talking about. De-escalation is basically calming down the situation, getting everything under control. The next thing you're going to talk about is that you're going to stick to Domino's policies. So just because someone's ranting and raving and shouting doesn't mean they automatically get a refund if that's not what's in the policy. So you're going to follow what Domino's has set down as the policy, and you're going to be aware of that. In your interaction, you're going to make sure that you're showing empathy, that you're going to be listening, and that you're not dismissive or rude to the customer. You are showing that you are empathetic. But most importantly is that you are going to make the Domino's brand look good. You're aware that other people are going to be looking at you. Other people in the store are going to be looking at you, and you're in the Domino's uniform and you're representing the brand, and that you take that seriously. So just say to your interviewer that when you're in the Domino's uniform, you are a brand representative, and it's your responsibility to make sure that the brand looks professional and that you are showing the positive corporate face of Domino's. The most important thing that you must mention in this question is that you don't ever argue back and you never raise your voice to a customer, ever. And if you just say that line in red, that is very reassuring to the person interviewing you and helps you get the job. So let's look at question 4, strengths and weaknesses. Classic interview question, often done really badly. So the first thing you're going to make sure is that your strength is actually a genuine strength. You have to know that you really do possess this, because if they dig into it and you've not got that strength, you'll look very stupid. You're going to provide good evidence that backs up that you actually have that strength. And most importantly, the strength that you pick has to be relevant to the work that you're doing at Domino's. And that will depend on what role you're filling. So a great example of an answer that you could have is from my previous experience in fast food retail. So you're linking it to some experience. So there's some evidence to start with. Reputation for reliability. Very important in Domino's that you are there on time for your shifts. Otherwise, that's going to affect the customer services. If there's not enough people at the front of the store or at the back of the store or on the delivery driving, it's going to cause delays and it's going to cause lots of problems. And you need to show that you're reliable. And the strongest bit of evidence that you can ever use is to link it to a reference, because it's basically you are saying, this isn't what I think. This is backed up with someone else who agrees that this is a strength, and it makes your answer so much more powerful. On the other hand, weaknesses is answered very, very badly. So the first thing to do with a weakness is to pick an actual weakness. So don't just talk some rubbish like, I'm a total perfectionist, and pretend that that is a weakness. That just makes you look not very credible and they don't take you seriously. Most importantly on this question, you have to actually be doing something about your weakness. And when you're selecting your weakness, and you have to think of this before your interview, make sure it's something that Domino's really doesn't care about. So if you were to say something like, I'm always getting disciplined for being persistently rude to customers, you've just lost the job. They might have been interested you up to there. The second that that has been said, they have lost interest and they're giving the job to someone else. So your weakness has to be something completely irrelevant or of minor significance to Domino's. And the way to structure your answer is just to say, a key weakness that I'm aware of is, at Domino's, I will do this. This is how I'm going to get over this weakness. So something that's not important that you're aware of, and then talk about what you're doing about it, and you will get through this question effortlessly. So let's look at the last question before we go on and look at some questions that you could ask them. Is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Classic interview question, again, very poorly answered. So you're going to start with something that's sensible. You're not going to be chief executive of Domino's in 5 years' time, so don't even go down that route. You're going to make sure that you've got a clear thought process. So you've thought about where you are now and where you're going to go, and you're going to make the most of the opportunities that Domino's has. A lot of people have went from just starting out to Domino's to owning a whole chain of Domino's stores and being multimillionaires. These things are possible with the company if you work very hard. So some things you might talk about is more responsibility. So you're talking kind of along the lines of one level up. So what's the job you're applying for? What's the one level up? And how would you get to that in 5 years in a credible way? If you're not interested in moving up, that's absolutely fine. So you talk about excelling at your role. So if you're just making the pizzas, you're going to talk about being able to do it exceptionally quickly, because that's one thing that Domino's quite values is speed. So you're going to be really quick and you're going to be really effective at that job. And you're maybe going to mentor and teach other people how to do that. So being excellent at your job, perfectly valid. You don't have to talk about moving up. A bad answer to this is something that is ridiculous, that they just look at you like you're insane, that there's no research or logic. And really, when you answer this, you just get the impression that you have never thought about what you're doing in 5 years' time. And that reflects very badly. And the worst thing you can do in this question is to give an answer that's just something that Domino's is not interested in, being, quitting Domino's as quick as possible, saying things like, it's just a summer job at uni, and you don't see any career with the company, or it's just temporary, or giving the idea that you're going to work here until you get something better. And it doesn't have to be as explicit as quitting, but just giving any impression in your answer that you're not going to be there in 5 years' time is going to be very negative. The best thing you can get in this answer is talking about wanting to be a franchisee. Not necessarily in 5 years, because that's very ambitious. You're thinking about numbers in the region of $250,000. So don't just go straight to that, because it may not be terribly credible. But you can talk about very, very long term that you would like to be a franchisee. That is the best answer to this question, I would say. Because if you're saying, in the future, I want to invest lots of my own money in the business, that makes you stand out. So talking about wanting to be a franchisee very long term is a great answer if it's vaguely credible. Last thing that I want to bring up is my bonus one, which is some questions that you can ask. And so I've given you lots of suggestions there, and you can go through that after this video, and you can think about which ones to do. You should have at least 3 planned, so I'd memorize some of these. A great question to ask is the one on the bottom left. What does an amazing Domino's employee look like? That's your opportunity for the manager to say, this is what I look for, and then you to use that last bit of the interview to remind him or her that you actually match up with what an amazing Domino's employee looks like. It's a clever trick to use in an interview. And the last thing, and most important on the questions to ask, is to be listening throughout the interview, because an interview is a two-way process, and to ask something that is directly relevant to something that's come up previously in the interview. And if you do that, it makes it sound like you're listening, you're paying attention, and you're really involved in that two-way process. So hopefully this video has been very helpful to you, and best of luck in your Domino's interview. Thank you for watching.